Okay, I am recording now. Start sharing screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just need to open up the gesture drawing. Okay.
What are you gonna tackle today?
Today, I will show you how the I guess I'll show you the Reilly abstraction.
Mm.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So the Reilly abstraction is very simple, but very powerful, as the simplest things always are.
Mm.
Okay. So the Reilly abstraction is a way of breaking down the figure into simple lines, and it really helps. So I'm going to show you how it works and then do a bunch of 2-minute abstraction demos. Um, so the abstraction starts with the head, which for our purposes can just be an oval, and then you want to measure the head so that we know this is how tall the head is. The body is 8 heads high, so you measure it down. 1 head takes you to there, 2 heads takes you to there, 3 heads to there. So this is now 4 heads. And then this is our figure breakdown. So the shoulders are right here, just below the head. This is the chest. This is the bottom of the rib cage. Or actually, this is the bottom of the rib cage. This is the top of the pelvis. This is the bottom of the pelvis and the start of the legs. This is the knee. This is the ankle, and this is the bottom of the feet. So if you make a line down the center, then from the shoulders to the pelvis, you get this triangle, and then from the nape of the neck to the hips, you get this triangle, and then the legs is just another triangle like this, and the arms can just be triangles like that. If you want them to. Your hand goes roughly halfway to the knee. So this is the knee, halfway to the knee is right here. And that's a human body. More or less.
Mm.
Now, it can get a little bit more involved, so we can say the neck is kind of like two kind of curvy, or three kind of curvy triangles like that, I guess. And then from there down to the bottom of the pelvis, and then this line can go from basically your ear. Like, imagine this is a head. This is your ear, right? This can go all the way from your ear down to the other hip. Sort of like that. And then the arms, you have the shoulder muscle, that's called the deltoid. So it curves a little bit. And then the rib cage, bottom of the rib cage is right about here. This is where your elbow is. Right?
Mm.
And then to just below the hips, we get the forearm. Maybe more like that. And then we get the hand. And then this line comes from the ear, goes all the way down to the other side of the hip, continues down into the leg. And then this line that comes from the shoulder goes all the way down into the other leg.
Oh.
So these are the rhythms of the body. And then feet, you can just make them triangles like that. Hands, you can just make squares. So this is a very, very simplified way to construct the human figure. But it's also very two-dimensional when you lay it out like a diagram. So what you want to do is you want to add volume. So the way I typically do that is I start with sort of the bottom of the rib cage, and I indicate whether I'm looking up or down at it, and then I go up to the clavicle, which is sort of the nape of the neck, and then I come from one shoulder down to the hip, get my center line in, then from the other shoulder down to the hip, and then I can add volume to this. Where now all of a sudden the figure has mass.
Mm.
So this is the pelvis, this is the ribs, these are some just muscles in here, and then this will be the leg, and this will be the other leg, and then you can even this can wrap around into the arm. And then again, I want to indicate that three-dimensionality of the underside of the chin, because we're looking up at the model here. Get the ear in the jaw. And so it suddenly becomes three-dimensional when you start thinking about this line here. It has to wrap around the rib cage, and this center line is going along the rib cage into the pelvis, following the form, the contour of the body. This line goes around into the hip. From the shoulder, it goes over the chest and down into the leg. Right?
Mm.
So here, let me try to color it a little bit. So this is the center line. And then from the shoulders, it wraps around. And then from the neck. Wait. What did I do? Whoops. From the shoulders, it goes to the center of the pelvis. And then from the neck, it goes to the opposite shoulder, the opposite hip. And then in here, you have the rib cage, which starts kind of up a little higher than you might think. And it's underneath all this. Kind of get that shape. And then we get the pelvis, which I'm just going to make kind of a saddle shape. Like that. There's your rib cage and your pelvis. And then you've got the clavicle, and on the back side you have the shoulder blade, which we can just simplify into triangles. So these are kind of the mass of the torso that I'm thinking about as I'm drawing the abstraction. It's not just about looking for the triangles, right? It's not just about trying to find this triangle here. You really want to look for the mass and the perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, So let me try to get into a couple demos now. And I'm gonna switch the screen. So give me a sec. Okay. So now you can see what I see a little better.
Yeah.
What you're trying to pay attention to is the rhythm, which they're the same for the front and back, just, you see slightly different shapes. So when you're looking at the front of the model, you see the clavicle goes down to the hip, and you get the arms, bottom of the rib cage where the elbows are, down to wrists, hands, right, and then you get the legs, and you get, these are the sternocleidomastoid muscles. This is the two big manic muscles you see. So that's what you see when you look at the front. And when you're looking at the back of the figure, you don't really see the clavicle, you don't see these muscles up here. But the rhythms are all still there. So when you're looking at the back of the model, right, you see sort of the side of the head. So it comes from the ear down. You get the spine, the ear down to the other hip, the ear down to the other hip, and then the shoulders to the pelvis, except we're not going to go to the bottom of the pelvis here. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the sort of the top of the pelvis, where you get this kind of shape. And then in here, the top of the pelvis, we start to see the glutes. And then the glutes go, so the pelvis starts here, and then the bottom of the pelvis is here. The glutes go down past that. They go onto the legs. And then we get still have this rhythm, comes all the way down. Pretty accurately goes down into the legs. But then we don't quite get a smooth rhythm from there, so we have to start again sort of from the glutes down. And then you get the legs. Something like that. Kinda made it stretched out a little bit, but yeah, whatever. So you get something like this. This looks more like the back of the figure, this looks more like the front of the figure. So just a little bit different, but pretty similar.
I have a question.
What's that?
What if the model is sideways?
Yeah, so if the model is perfectly sideways, then well, it depends on the shape of the model, right? If they're very slender or if they have more body fat. But generally, you'll see something like, you'll see the rib cage like this. And then you'll see the pelvis in here. Then you'll get the legs.
So it's still applied.
Yeah, so what you get is, this is sort of the front edge.
Yeah.
You get that curve. The back edge, you get a bit of a tighter curve. So when you get to the side of the figure, you start getting into slightly more hybrids of methods. Do you remember when I was telling you about the bean?
Huh? Yep.
Okay, so the bean is a really good way of just doing the torso. So you get, in this example, you would have this for the rib cage, and you have this circle for the pelvis, so you get a pinch in here, and it's all stretched out here, and you have a bean. So you can take the bean, and you can sort of apply the abstraction on top of it, because even when you're looking at it from the side, you're still going to see some of the back, some of the front. So you can go from the shoulder to the center line, and then from that down to the legs, right? And then you get, this is the arch of the pelvis. This is the arch of the pelvis, and then this is where the leg and the pelvis meet. And then you start getting your legs. Right? And then you get this kind of saddle shape for the arms, if you want to think of it that way. So you can still apply it. You really want to know, there's a few like methods, but you want to be able to use all of them interchangeably. I haven't gotten too much into it right now because I don't want you to think quite so literally about just drawing the contour of what you're seeing, like where you see the shape of the leg like this, the knee, and then like you're thinking so much about the outline. I don't want you to draw the outline. I want you to start thinking about the mass and the rhythm of it. So that's why I haven't really shown you so much. But the most important things is measurement. How do you spell measurement? M-E-S.
MEASURE.
Measurement.
There's an E.
Measurement. So, measurement is the most important thing. This is what I was saying about the 8 heads. Because ultimately, when we're studying the model, it's all well and good to make it, have a head this big and then shoulders this big and a torso like this and then legs this big and arms like that and hands this big, right? Like that's fine if you're doing a character and you're drawing a style and that's what the shapes look like. But when we're studying the model, you need to make it, the goal is to try to reproduce what you see through your own interpretation. So you don't want to go too crazy with it, unless you have this character that you're trying to put in different poses. But that's much more advanced. That's something we'll tackle in a long time. The goal is to reproduce what you see. And measuring is one of the best ways to do that. Now, the few other keys are massing, movement, or gesture, or rhythm, and perspective. These are sort of the keys. So the bean, this is an example of massing. The abstraction, the Reilly abstraction, is an example of rhythm or gesture or movement. These are kind of interchangeable things. And perspective relates most to massing, where if you're looking up at something, right? If I'm looking up at something, I see the bottom of it. If I'm looking down at something, I see the top of it, right? This is important as it relates to massing, because if I'm looking up at the rib cage, then I want to curve my lines like this, because now I'm looking up at it. So if you imagine a cylinder, you're looking up at it. You see those lines versus if you're looking down at it. You see these lines. So the leading edge, when you're looking up, curves up, and the leading edge, when you're looking down, curves down. So when you're looking at the rib cage, if you're looking up at it, then you curve your lines up, and then now you have a mass. Now you have a three-dimensionality to it. And then it might be that the top of the pelvis, you're more or less looking straight on at it, and then the bottom of the pelvis, by the time you get to there, you're looking more down at it. Right, so this is how you add volume And the mass of it is directly related to perspective. Because if something has volume, then it is in perspective. You are either looking up at it, you're looking down at it, you're looking straight at it. But if it has three-dimensional shape, there is a perspective to it. So, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to get into some demos. I will draw the abstraction a few times.
Okay.
Now, when you're doing the abstraction, one of the best techniques is to basically draw a solid line across your whole drawing surface. You're really trying to feel the movement, the rhythm of the pose, and drawing one solid line can really help with that. So let me just get a good pose. Okay. So here's the pose I'm looking at. It's pretty side on. So from the foot, it goes like all the way around like that.
Are you looking at something right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at a picture of the model. So the pose is something like this. So I get my rib cage in, get my pelvis in. And then this leg is coming forward. And then it's going down. And this leg is coming back quite a ways. And then there's the foot here. And then the arms are going like this. And then the chin is looking up quite a bit. And then, like that, you've kind of got a pose. So here's the leg, this is the knee, this is the heel. So this is kind of what you're trying to do. Don't worry about, perfectly drawing the rib cage and the pelvis, and this is your leading leg, and then this is your back leg. You're really just trying to feel your way through it. Right, so don't worry about this right now. Just try to look for where you see motion, where you see a straight line or a curved line, how they're moving. And you're really trying to simplify and draw as best you can. And you can even simplify this down even further so that you're basically just, this whole pose can be simplified as a C curve, where this is the leg and this is the front edge of the body, and then this is the head. Sometimes this line will go through the center of the pose, like if you have somebody standing, you might get sort of a compound S curve where the head is looking down like that, and then the body is kind of doing something like this. Right, so then in this case it would be sort of a compound C curve, or a compound S curve. So you're really just trying to look for these rhythms, and then adding some volume, some perspective, and then after you sort of understand where the volume is and how the rhythm works, then you can get into sort of doing anatomical details. Make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay. I'll gotta switch over to... I'll let you draw from reference, and then we'll see how you do. And I'll give you some critique after. Okay?
I'm nervous, but okay.
Alright. It'll be good. Don't worry about it.
Can you send me a screenshot of like the first sheet that you were drawing
Yes.
at?
I will export.
Okay.
I will export
Thank you.
the images. And when I upload this to YouTube, I'll put a link to a Dropbox folder so that anybody else can see it as well. They can download the pictures if they want to see it.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Gonna stop recording. This video may continue with some critique later. Depends how it goes. If you're up for that, will you be up for that?
Well, it depends on how it looks like.
Okay, there may or may not be more to this video. If there is more, then I'll see you soon. If not, then I hope this helped anybody who's watching. And goodbye.